Pennsylvania is by far the likeliest state to be the tipping point state, the state that will provide either Joe Biden or Donald Trump with the decisive vote in the Electoral College. Now, Joe Biden has been consistently in the lead in that state. He's up by 4.5 points in the latest 538 polling average, but that's still fairly close. And we all saw what happened in 2016, right? And a recent ruling by the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court could really imperil Biden's chances.
Yeah, Chris Hayes is absolutely right in assessing a recent state Supreme Court ruling in Pennsylvania and how it could negatively impact Joe Biden in this tight race. So the state Supreme Court just last week ordered officials to throw out what's referred to as naked ballots, mail ballots that arrive without inner secrecy envelopes. So Pennsylvania uses a 2-envelope mail ballot system. A completed ballot goes into a secrecy envelope that has no identifying information, and then into a larger mailing envelope that the voter signs. And so basically what the state Supreme Court has said is that if voters fail to put their ballot in a secrecy envelope, then there are privacy issues there, and based on state law, those ballots need to be thrown out. Now, obviously that's already a huge problem. Just to add insult to injury, we're honestly having a difficult time even measuring how many ballots this is going to impact. And we're talking about a battleground state where you have 2 candidates running a tight race. Now, Chris Hayes did a really good job explaining more about how this 2-envelope system works in Pennsylvania, complete with visuals. So let's take a quick look at that video, and then I'll tell you what the potential damage based on estimates could be.
In Pennsylvania and other states as well, you receive 2 envelopes with your ballot. You have to seal your ballot in the plain ballot envelope first. Then you put that envelope inside the other one, which is the return envelope, and you send it off. Now, the reason this is done is to ensure that your vote stays anonymous. Election officials will check the outer envelope to make sure the information's correct, the vote is valid, and then they open it and they've got that inner envelope, right? That's still protecting your privacy, containing the ballot but no identifying information, and they put that in a stack to be counted.
And so, John, I mean, look, we obviously can't stand the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, but you gotta hand it to them. They find any and every way to get an upper hand in this election. He is fighting as aggressively as possible, in some ways to do things that are anti-democratic, like dismantling the post office. In other instances, he went through the courts and succeeded in getting the state Supreme Court to rule in his favor. So the Trump campaign and other Republicans sued Pennsylvania in federal court over several election rules, including arguing that naked ballots should not be counted. They got their way with that. The state Democratic Party filed a countersuit in state court. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled they should be thrown out under state law. So Trump is looking for any way to get an edge, and he's succeeding. And when you look at the polling in a lot of these battleground states, Trump has not only closed in on Biden, in some instances, like in Arizona, for instance, he now has a slight lead over Biden. So things aren't looking good for the general election, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it.
Do I have to give you a thought? Can it just be an emotion? Can it just be utter exhaustion and depression with the entire thing? This one story, this one action that you're describing the story is the Republican Party for literally decades now. It is finding every little piddly specific way to make it as difficult as possible for a person's vote to actually matter. And maybe each one is small. I mean, maybe this one is just a couple of percentage points. Maybe the gerrymander reduces it by a point. Maybe, but then eventually you add up all of these things, and it's this huge obstacle just to have political preferences and have them actually count in the system. And in a democracy, the best democracy, we keep being told that should not be the case, but they get to keep doing it because it benefits them. And even if we talk about it, it doesn't hurt them. Because Republican voters don't care, because when the Republicans do this, they think it benefits their side, because it does. So if one party is actively waging war on democracy, there is apparently no cost whatsoever to doing that at all. And I don't see long term how you can have a functioning democracy after decades and decades of the corrosive effect of those sorts of moves in 100 different areas. We focus on one today, maybe we'll do another tomorrow, but they just stack up. It's a massive pile of obstacles and little parasites on our democracy, a new one every day. It's this, or it's some people they wanted to do absentee ballots, so they requested to get the thing that you are supposed to fill out and then send in to get your actual ballot, and they get it and it's covered in Trump stuff. So it looks like it's a campaign mailer from Trump. How is that legal? Well, all it takes is having Republicans control the state government. And some people have probably thrown those away, thinking that clearly can't be official election mail, but it in fact is, because that's how sick our democracy is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're a Democratic voter and you get your mail-in ballot with Trump's face all over it, you're gonna throw it away. I mean, I would throw it away because I wouldn't realize that it's a mail-in ballot. You're absolutely right. So there are all sorts of tricks being implemented to make it increasingly difficult for Democratic voters to have their vote count. My hope is with a story like this, with our coverage of it, that if you're watching, can you please share it to ensure that people who are voting by mail in Pennsylvania do it the right way so their vote counts. We want to get this messaging out there. We want to make sure that everyone's vote counts. But John, you're not wrong when you mention that this is going to negatively impact Biden, based on what appears to be the case so far. So throwing out naked ballots, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, could be costly for Biden in a state President Donald Trump won by a narrow margin, only 44,000 votes in 2016, or less than 1%. So this is a battleground state. This is an incredibly important state, and it is terrifying to see what is likely to happen if people continue submitting these naked ballots. And again, we have no way of really measuring how many people have already submitted these naked ballots. But Lisa Deeley, who's the chair of the Philadelphia City Commissioners, wrote in a letter to state legislative leaders urging them to change the law to allow the ballots to be counted. Deeley warned there will likely be tens of thousands thrown out, maybe more than 100,000, which could be a disaster. So Deeley is saying, look, the state Supreme Court ruled this way based on the way laws are written in the state of Pennsylvania. We can change the law so these ballots count. But of course, Republicans in the state legislature are resistant toward doing anything that would help to make those ballots count. And mail-in voting's never really been huge in Pennsylvania until now because of the pandemic. So it is difficult to figure out how many ballots will be impacted by this ruling. But we do have evidence of how widespread the naked ballot issue could be based on elections last November. So let me give you those numbers. In last November's municipal election, under the old absentee system, 197 out of 3,086 absentee ballots in Philadelphia lacked secrecy envelopes. That's 6.4%, and Deeley said that number will be even higher this year because obviously more people are gonna vote by mail as a result of the coronavirus.
Yeah, 100%, and not every single one of the people affected will be Biden voters, but if Biden voters are far more likely than Republicans to do a mail-in ballot, and if in these areas like in Philadelphia, they're more likely to be Democrats, then it is gonna disproportionately affect the Democrats. The Republicans, of course, don't mind that potentially thousands and thousands of Republican voters will also be disenfranchised. They don't actually care about those, they care about the end result. That's what they've always cared about. And it infuriates me so much that, like, this is a story about an election being manipulated, but it's obviously tied to so many other stories. I mean, when we don't give a damn about what happens in the Supreme Court, what you get is a Supreme Court that is going to help these sorts of changes to election and voting laws continue. So if hypothetically Joe Biden comes in, and let's say they get the Dems get the Senate, and let's say this time around, not like back under Obama, they actually do something to protect democracy, to make voting a voting day a holiday, to pass some sort of law trying to put back into effect some parts of the Voting Rights Act or something like that. Well, it'll be relatively easy for them to just overturn it in the Supreme Court. Like think about how overwhelming having that majority is when it comes to just making sure that you can just continue to gerrymander and disenfranchise people and purge the votes and take away polling places. You can do all of those things, and then that produces the sort of legislation you want across all other issue areas. It is just so important that we actually get access to the vote. In fact, not just hypothetically, and right now we don't. And even if Biden comes in, it might be too late, honestly, for that. I don't know. It's so depressing to see this war being waged so openly and have it not even matter if people understand that it's going on. The only thing we can say right now is, if you're watching this and you're in Pennsylvania, put it in the secrecy envelope. That's the best that we can really hope for right now.
And please, communicate with your community and spread the word and ensure that people are submitting their mail-in ballots accurately so their vote counts. Yeah, you're right. I mean, sometimes you feel pretty helpless in situations like this, but all we can do is spread the word and just hope that people submit their ballots correctly.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.